Forming municipal coalitions can be a really messy affair, with 66 hung councils coming out of these elections, 5 of them being major metros. The next week is going to be really interesting to see who will govern where. But not many people know that there are actually 2 ways of forming a local government. The current system used by all is where one party elects an executive mayor who holds all the power over a mayoral committee. But there is another system, and that's when a committee is made up of all the parties who got a piece of the voting pie, and the mayor's position is largely ceremonial. Well, Michael Evans is a lawyer with a keen knowledge of all things local government, and he joins us live now to discuss this. Mr. Evans, how are you? It is so good to chat to you. Michael, as far as I know, the IEC declares the results 14 days after that. A speaker has to be elected. We're looking at next Thursday, and there's still a lot of horse trading going on, but there is perhaps a better way forward.
Yes, good morning, Annika, and to your views as well. There are 2 systems of local government in our Municipal Structures Act, and around the country, almost all the municipalities, or all of them, have been operating on the basis of an executive mayoral system. And it's a kind of winner-takes-all system where in a majority council, that party will totally dominate. The entire mayoral committee will be from that party. There's much more scope then for corruption and patronage. And there is an alternative system that I think is better across the board, but particularly where we've got these kind of strange coalition debates and the likelihood of parties that aren't really aligned trying to come together to rule, the kingmakers becoming far too powerful. And that's the collective executive system which you mentioned, Annika, and that's one where you have an executive committee of up to 10 people. And the political parties are proportionately represented on that executive committee. Generally, that's the usual way. So if we take a metro like Johannesburg at the moment, you would have on that executive committee 4 from the ANC, 3 from the DA, 2 from Action SA, and 1 from EFF. And that would then be the leadership of the council. So the main parties would then all be represented in the leadership. There would be necessary checks and balances in the process. And if they couldn't reach agreement on the executive committee, well, then they would have to take it to the council for a decision.
Michael, the provincial minister decides which of the 2 systems is employed. Why are we not going with the second option, which would certainly seem more equitable?
Well, I think that's really a question for the major parties, for the ANC and the DA. The ANC controls 8 of the provinces, and the DA controls the 1 province, the Western Cape. And I think it would be up to them to initiate that sort of process, because all the provincial minister would need to do would be to go through a comment process. They'd need to give the municipality and SALGA, the local government association, and the public an opportunity to comment on the alternative, and then they would determine it, and they would make a determination that municipalities A, B, and C will now move into a municipality with a collective executive system, and that would alter the system completely, and the parties would then all be represented in the leadership, and we would do away with this all-powerful executive mayor.
What if coalitions...
But it's not something that... yes.
Sorry, Michael.
Okay.
What if coalitions cannot be formed or aren't formed by next Thursday? Well,
there's quite a complex process in terms of Section 139 of our Constitution, where the provincial government can then intervene. They have to go through a formal process and then appoint an administrator to run the council. And potentially that's what will happen, because if a municipality can't meet and can't get together an elected speaker and elected executive mayor, then they are failing in their statutory obligations. And when they fail in their statutory obligations, that's the situation in which the province can potentially intervene in terms of Section 139 of the Constitution. And so we are heading in that direction, I think, in some of the municipalities. I mean, we're hearing reports that there are likely to be formed coalitions in some of them, but in others it's going to be extremely difficult. But even where we have formed coalitions, putting parties together, I mean, we've seen in the past in a place like Johannesburg where the EFF and DA were together, it just didn't work as a coalition. In Nelson Mandela Bay, the same thing happened. So there's not a good track record of coalitions in this country. And we've seen municipalities failing throughout the country, both in terms of patronage and corruption and in terms of ineptitude and failure to deliver services. So I think we should be looking at a situation where municipalities are depoliticized as far as possible, and where they focus on one issue and one issue only, and that is service delivery in relation to water, electricity, waste, housing, etc. And I think we are much better oriented towards a service delivery municipality where we have a collective executive system, where the major parties are represented, where they can debate with each other as to how best to deliver services, and they move forward on that basis.
It certainly seems like the more equitable option and certainly better for citizens. So let's see which way they go. What's interesting to me, Michael, is that the two options were part of the legislation when it was drafted. So I'm surprised that there's even a choice, because option with the non-executive mayorship certainly seems like the better one for service delivery at this stage. Well, that was Michael Evans, a lawyer with a knowledge of all things local from Weber Wenzel. Thank you so much for your time today.